to the podcast version of 32 Bar Cut, the show, a series for performers, about performers, made by performers. Every week, we give audition advice, share personal experiences, and sit down with fellow colleagues in the performing arts to chat about their life in the industry. If you are hearing this message, you are not currently a subscriber and will only be hearing the first half of the podcast. If you would like to hear the full interview, including the curtain call series, you'll want to head over to 32barcut.com, where you can find a link to our Patreon page. There you will have exclusive access to the entire video and private RSS podcast feed, as well as other subscriber-only content. Thanks for listening. Without further ado, on to the show.
Welcome to 32 Bar Cut, the show, a show where we talk with our friends about what it's like to be a performer. Today on 32 Bar Cut, the show, we have Emmy-nominated, Grammy-nominated, Tony Award-winning Broadway star, Kelli O'Hara.
That's a nice intro.
Well, you know, I try. I got to let the people know. I mean, I feel like they already know who you are, but just in case, a little reminder. But I should say that I also consider Kelli a friend, and I feel so blessed that I got a chance to work with you and spend time with you and kiss me, Kate, and hold your hand every night.
I was just going to say, hold your hand every night.
So how have you been doing? I know it's been a crazy time, but I see that you've been busy, you've been up to things, but how are you really? How have you been doing?
I am busy. I think busyness is the medicine for all ills, just to keep busy. We're okay. I actually really can't complain about a lot. I've been begging for more time with my kids for, since they were born, and here I have it. I'm still singing on different platforms. I'm doing some television work. So I'm not going to complain. And especially after, sort of the events of yesterday and things, I just feel better. But at the same time, I have those days where I just think, what's happening right now in this world? So I think it's just, today's a good day in general. Mm-hmm.
And for those of you watching or listening and you're thinking yesterday, because this episode will actually air in March, but yes. She's referring to the presidential inauguration and the historical moment we all got to witness, and that things feel a little brighter and a little more cheerful. And I see that Kelli and I both wore blue, so I appreciate that.
Exactly.
So usually on this channel or this podcast, we talk a lot about auditions and what it's like to prepare as an actor and the ups and downs of that. And something I don't really know about you is what it was like for you to move to New York, start your journey in theater, and what it was like to really start, hitting the pavement with auditions. Like, what were those first few auditions for whatever shows, whether it be off Broadway, on Broadway? What was it like?
Well, I think that I had just enough naivete and a lot of energy and adrenaline, that a lot of the things now I look back and I think, oh my God, how did I ever do that? I didn't know anyone. I didn't have any leads. It was pathetic. In fact, my very first audition for anything, I moved on a Thursday and it was a Monday morning. I went to an open call at what was then Raw Space, which now doesn't exist. It was on 42nd Street between 10th and 11th. And, I put on my business suit, my lavender business suit, because I thought I'm going for a job. And I got off the subway. I was staying up at a friend's apartment on their couch. I had no place to live. I got off the subway and walked 4 long blocks the wrong way. So I walked towards Grand Central. So then I was almost in tears coming back the other way. It took me 45 minutes to get back to 10th Avenue. I go in and I ended up getting that job. It's the most ridiculous story in the world. And it was this little tiny production in Westchester, New York, called Something's Afoot, non-union. And I thought, man, I'm here. I've arrived. And then all the stuff started happening. After that show, ups and downs, not knowing how you're going to pay your bills, lines around the corner from the Equity Building trying to be seen. I was non-union for a while. Things are so different now, of course, but, I would never have been able to get seen or sing a whole song in an audition. So I think there was a combination of real just stupidity that made it okay for me, not really knowing what was right or wrong. But also a lot of good luck. And I think back to that and I'm very grateful that I had some shots in the beginning.
I can completely identify with that. When I think back on my first auditions, I cringe because I know that I thought that I was doing what I was supposed to be doing. And, when you come from a classical background, you don't really know how casual it can be in a musical theater audition. And so for my first few auditions, I was way too dressed up. And I thought it was, a huge taboo to not wear heels in an audition. Like, you have to wear heels. And I did some very silly things, but I think it helped more than it hurt because I wasn't afraid. I didn't know who I was singing in front of. I didn't have the fear of the accolades that whoever this person in front of me had or their achievements. I didn't know. I was just like, well, this show looks cool. I'm available. Let's see what happens.
Have you told Kelli your character shoe story?
My character shoe story. Actually, so this didn't happen early on. This just happened like 5 years ago.
That's even better. We're still learning.
So I had this character shoe story where it was actually for my Lion King audition. I was on tour and I didn't have a lot of heels. I actually didn't have a lot of heels just in general. I wasn't that girl, but I had like a couple pairs. And the dress that I wanted to wear, because of course I had to wear a dress, the dress that I wanted to wear for the Lion King audition didn't match the 2 pairs of heels that I had brought on tour with me. So, but I was like, but it matches my character shoes. And my friend on tour was like, oh, that's fine. You can wear these. And I was like, are you sure? And she was like, yeah, wear these. And so I showed up to my Lion King audition in this dress that I really loved, but then these like god awful character shoes. And Mark Brandon pulled me aside after the audition and said, do you always wear character shoes to your auditions? And I was like, no. And then he was like, well, you're really great, but I just think when you wear character shoes, it makes you look a little green and a little unprofessional. I was like, oh my God. And they had already called me back later that day. And he's like, don't go get anything, but just so you know, I just want to help you out. And I was like, okay. Well, sure enough, after they released me, I went down the street to DSW and got a pair of bumps. I was like, absolutely not. I can't go out like this. But
I would have thought about that forever. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fashion person and I've never really, it's always more of a burden to me to feel like I look right. But I do remember, now that you say that, doing one audition and having some shoes on that I think were pretty good, like some heels. And now I have lots of heels, but at the time, pretty decent shoes. I don't know if I had gotten them for a job or something, but they were good shoes. And I remember opening night of that show, the choreographer coming over to me and saying to me, you know what? I knew you were a girl right from when I saw your shoes in the audition. And I thought, oh my God, it matters that much. Like it almost made me mad because I thought my talent got me here, and to hear someone say, I remember your shoes from the audition. And I thought, wow, I just got lucky. I got lucky on that. And by the way, with my business suit, that lavender purple business suit, I definitely wore my character shoes with it.
Because you don't know. And like you said, you don't think that they're even paying attention to something like your shoes. Yeah. But they notice everything. You walk in the room and you're assessed and then they decide. But
absolutely.
Do you feel like at this point, because I don't know this, I am not where you are in my career. So I'm curious, like, are you at the point now, which is a dream to me, that for any show, like any musical theater show or whatever, are you at the point where it's just straight offers? You never have to audition. You're just like, you're deciding, oh, do I want to do this?
Oh, no, I've like an egg on my face. I believe me, we all have those things that keep us humble. So any television or anything like that I've ever wanted to do, it's like I start right from it's like I'm back in that lavender suit with character shoes on. But I will say, I'm not going to lie. I mean, in musical theater, I'm so grateful. And there's such a peace in me that, yes, I am at a point where I've made relationships in the business and it's what will I do next? And I'll have a conversation with somebody and we might think of a show to do. And if there's enough support in that, then we'll do it. I have not auditioned for a musical in a long while, but I think if there was a play, and believe me, I would love to be considered for a really juicy role in a play, I think absolutely a director would say, I don't buy it. I need to see her first. And, famously, Bart Shear, he won't do a musical. I didn't audition for The King and I, but he won't do a musical usually without auditioning. And it doesn't matter who you are. Like Reese Witherspoon, Scarlett Johansson. I remember they came in for one of his musicals and he made them audition. So I think we have to be ready at any time, to be assessed or whatever it is. But these days I'm sort of just picking and choosing by virtue of like who I'll work with, and will it be nice and fun and a pleasant experience, and will it challenge me and things. So
I feel like you've earned that though. I mean, it's not like it just fell in your lap. You've paid your dues. People like to use that phrase, but it does really work. Like I feel like you've earned the time in your life to pick and choose and to have conversations with creators and stuff.
Well, listen, what do we earn? Any of us? I mean, some things felt easy for me. And I do think that hard work, what I've told, students, especially, hard work begets more work, hard work and being a good collaborator, being a good colleague. So in a way, yeah, you could, I could pat myself on the back a little bit and say, oh, I guess I've built these relationships, and when they're doing a new project, they might think of me. They don't always use me. I've been turned down by those same people. But there's also a lot of just being in the right place at the right time, or something being right for you, or whatever that is. And I try not to say it's too much like I earned it all, but because there's plenty of stuff that I worked hard for that, you didn't get it either. So
I wonder too that sometimes you almost want the chance to audition, because when you get the chance, it's like, I feel like some casting directors may say, Kelli O'Hara does this thing.
Right.
And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you may feel that, no, give me a chance to show you something else. Let me show you what I can do.
I think you're exactly right. I think we want to have a chance. There are a lot of assumptions that are made for all of us. We all feel that. And so they might not even have you in the room because they already write you off as being not what they think they want. So in that particular case, you're exactly right. If there's something that you look at and you say, I want that, and I know no one will believe me, but I'm going to go prove them wrong, then, you have to fight for it. And the best way to do that is to present yourself in a convincing way.
Definitely. And I think, you spoke a little bit about being a collaborator, and I feel like it doesn't matter how talented you are. If you're difficult to work with, eventually people will start writing you off and deciding, you know what, it's just that I'd rather work with someone I have fun with than deal with the mood swings or the outbursts or the whatever.
No, I totally agree with you. And even if you do succeed in that and continue to succeed with that sort of lifestyle and behavior, you might be on top, but you'd be very lonely. And I think that is something to point out, because, I won't name anybody in particular, but especially more so, not so much in our business, but in the big leagues, the superstars out there. I do know stories about people who just continue to be real disrespectful, and they continue to sort of thrive. And I think I could bet $1 million that it's a lonely existence. Because it's you bring that to yourself. If you don't need people, if you don't feel you need them, or if they're just here to serve you, then people don't truly know you, and you don't truly know them. And I never wanted to be that way. I wanted to be so much more, rich in my existence. I don't want to have a lonely life. I want to have a collaborative one on and off the stage. And there's some humility in that, you need people. We need each other.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do feel like on stage, people can feel that energy that you have with your colleagues on stage. For example, if you're having a scene with someone and you're really in that scene with them, and that you're feeding off each other, I feel like that energy is strong enough for the person in the back row to see and feel. And that's what makes powerful performances for me. Whenever I go see a show and I can see the connection that the actors have. And it's not just one person's show or another person's show, but they're all collectively, even if it's this one person that comes in and they're like the waiter, and that's the only reason they were hired for that play. Those are the most enjoyable moments for me. And having worked with you and spent time with you and gotten to know you, I feel like you have one of the most generous spirits that I've been able to be around. And I don't want to make you feel uncomfortable, but I feel like you are so far from any diva personality. I think that you embody all the things that make theater and performing great. Really, you really do.
Boy, I've got you fooled. No, thank you so much. But I think it's a two-way street. It always is. I feel like when you feel like someone is generous to you and is there for you. I love the relationship on stage between two people who are sort of batting it back and forth and catching and throwing and, playing that great ball game, as opposed to sort of a solo act that never changes based on the person next to them. I just find that boring, really boring, like boring way to work where you set your tone yourself. And I just don't think it's fair to the other person. We're doing this to be malleable and to feel. And, I was thinking about what you said about a waiter. I know that it's cliche to say there are no small parts, but think about reality. I've had some extraordinary experiences with waiters, I started singing, to be honest. I have a great story where I was waiting tables and it was a restaurant where you sing. I ended up singing at this man's funeral, getting to know his family because I had sung at their table. You make connections. And so there might be a waiter on stage, but if you looked at them any given Saturday matinee, you'd be like, he reminds me of somebody, and all of a sudden they're a person that belongs in the story, So I think you make connections with everything, and in doing so, and that can be the same for real life. In other words, noticing everything around you. Mm-hmm. Your life is just richer and fuller, and you never know where the change makers are. You never know what's going to happen in one interaction, so that's the same thing for me on stage,
Yeah, you never know what's going to happen in one interaction. That's so true. Someone could say one thing to you and it's something you apply to your life for a few years, and they never knew that they impacted you in that way. That's happened to me many times. Of course, I can't think of one moment right now, but that's happened to me a lot.
Well, I recently, and I don't want to take too much time with these little stories. I can always talk.
Oh, no, please do.
There was a woman at the grocery store, and because she had her mask on, this is just recently, something had happened where there was a mistake with the credit card, and she was so lovely about it in front of me, and I was just observing it all. And I looked at her, and she had the same hair and the same hands and the same body and everything as my late mother-in-law. And the same voice, but she had a mask on. So I placed my mother-in-law's face on her without thinking I was doing it. And I was watching her, and I was watching her be kind. And then she turned to me and was apologetic and being kind. And I remember thinking to myself as she left, being like, hi, Pam, like as if I had been visited by Pam just for a second, almost like a little gift. I took it as that. And I've since seen her around town. I've seen this woman always in a mask, but I know it's her. And I have this weird feeling like I'm having these little visitations because I was very close with my mother-in-law. I know that's a silly story, but I just mean it's the small moments that can be sort of monumental if you notice them. I might have been looking at my phone and not even looked up at this woman. And yet I almost feel like she's this connection for me just to have Pam in my heart. Mm-hmm. So I like noticing things that are odd or seemingly small.
Yeah, I can identify with that. There's a man in my neighborhood. He just stands outside. I don't really know what he's up to, but he reminds me of my grandfather. And I was really close to my grandfather, and he passed away when I was 13. And there's just something about this man that reminds me of him. And so I started saying hello, and then that turned into me and Bella stopping and him petting Bella and her warming up to him, because at first she was not having it. Mm-hmm. And now whenever I see him, he and I we just have a chat, and sometimes I have Bella, sometimes I don't. And it's just nice. And it does feel like I'm being visited by my grandfather. I know that it's not true or possible, but he reminds me of him, and it's nice to think about him, 20 years later. And just,
What do we know about the deliverers of messages? We don't know.
Yeah,
We don't
we don't
really
know.
know. So you say, I don't know what he's up to. I sort of do. I like to believe in that. I believe that there's, um, what if there is an afterlife, and what if there is a way to check in,
Mm,
and say hello once in a while? And if there was, then seems like it's being successful, and probably because you were open-minded about it, open to it. I
mhm.
think a lot of people would shut the door on that option. A man who stands outside, in New York or Brooklyn or whatever it is.
Yeah,
Um, and I don't know. I think that's sort of a beautiful story if you look at it that way.
I love that. I really do.
It's one of those things where I know for me, the way I grew up extremely conservative Christian in the Midwest. I would just describe myself as one of those, a very naive yet kind young lad. And then moving first to Chicago with Adrienne, and then moving to New York, I had to check myself so much because I feel like I've turned into this crude, nasty version of myself in order to survive. And it's just really lovely to hear that we can still be kind. We can still have connections with people, even in the worst of places, which could be the New York subway.
Yeah,
Yeah,
New York can feel like a lonely place, even though it's filled with people. Yeah.
I know, and everything we move with a modicum of care and safety. Of course, we don't just walk up to somebody and invite them in, but especially in New York. But there are these moments of sort of peaceful circumstance that I think it's less about involving ourselves in dangerous things or possibly dangerous, and more about just noticing when there might be signs or messages or, um, I think life is sort of what you make it,
Hmm.
faith, belief, anything it is sort of what you make it. And sort of it's all to get through, isn't it? I
Yeah.
don't think of it as a weak thing. I think of it as a needed, a necessary thing. And I love those moments that when we notice them might have been a little bit of a gift.
Yeah.
And who cares if they're not, because you felt it as one. You feel it as one. Isn't
Absolutely.
that the point at the end of the day?
Yeah, because life is just a series of interpretations, right? It's your perspective, and so it can be what you make it, for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, exactly.
I have spent the week researching you for this interview. I was about to say audition. Oh my gosh, researching you for
God, I hope
this.
I get it.
and and that's simply because I wanted to make sure that we talked about things that you and I identified with, or that you identified with. It's something you can share that's new, because I know you've done a lot of sit downs throughout the years with folks. And I came across The Accidental Wolf,
Oh.
and I wanted to talk with you about that project and what it was like to embody Kate, and just anything you want to share about The Accidental Wolf.
Yeah, just going back to its creation, Arian Moayed, its creator, writer, director, and I had done King Lear together. And Arian didn't know me. Talk about people making assumptions. He had no idea I was a musical theater actor. He had no idea I was a singer at all.
Mm.
He just knew me as the actress in the Shakespeare play. And he had already made some short films, and he was a writer. And he said, I want to write a show with this girl, and that, what a compliment to me. And over the course of literally years, he would come to my dressing room at King and I while he was doing The Humans. We made this work, and he was creating Katie Bonner. He had so much to say. He still does, about the world. He's an Iranian American. He has a lot to say about, immigration and anything, all things that are going around the world and how it's affected. And this one idea of how far would you go to help a stranger?
Mm.
And I love that he gave me this. I've learned so much about on camera work in a way that wasn't scary, or I didn't feel like, I was left out. He would talk me through lenses and what this means and lighting. And he has the most extraordinary people that he's put together for this. We've been working on it in the pilot episode, which was originally a short film that turned into a pilot of a series. My baby is in the pilot episode. I'm nursing her, and Charlotte is now 7.5. So that's how long we've been doing this project. So,
Wow.
that's the kind of thing you do it in between things, and he's shooting a Marvel movie right now, and he's in Succession on HBO, and so he's very busy himself. But it has been the most extraordinary experience that has led, I think, to new opportunities and new jobs. And it started out as this little engine that could, and I cannot thank him enough in general for sort of believing in someone who really didn't have any expertise in it whatsoever.
I feel like there's a series of moments that happen in careers like ours where someone takes a chance on you, or it feels like they see something in you and they want to see where that can go. And I know earlier you mentioned, you had a lot of luck in the beginning, but I feel like it's a moment for people to just see what you have to offer, or just see you flourish and allow you that chance to flourish. And I mean, I really enjoyed the series. I was sad that it kind of left, spoiler alert, on a bit of a cliffhanger, because I was like, well, what happens? I was just ready for everything to be like tied up. And I was like, okay, so there has to be a season 2.
Well, he'll never give you a tie-up bow. He will never do that. But there's a season 2 coming up very soon, actually, in March. And then we're shooting season 3 as well. So it's coming. It's been in pieces. At first it was a short form series, then it got bought, it's being re-edited. So it's just coming in its own time. But you know how we were talking in the beginning about needing others, being humbled by that. It's not so much luck or I did this for myself and therefore I'm a big, I'm successful. You need those people to, we all do, to open that door. Now you have to come to the party once you're in. You have to be there, and try to deserve it and earn it. But you're right. To have an opportunity like that really took someone else's sort of open mind and vision of that. And I like to remember that, because that makes me feel like I continue to be collaborative, and that particular experience is still just really rewarding for me.
Yeah.
I wondered about something that Adrienne and I talk about all the time at dinner, is with TV and film, because we're such musical theater people, but Adrienne's been doing so many TV and film auditions, and we're just kind of waiting for that moment.
I haven't booked anything yet.
But it just seems like, how do you even start, or what you were saying even casually, about lenses and lights, and it can seem like, I don't know if I'll ever be able to do this. Do you have any thoughts on all that?
Yeah, no, I mentioned this, and I'm very grateful to have some of this now education. There's a lifetime of it that I don't have. I'll often, even now working on the new show I'm working on, I'll forget, oh, right, they're over there, because the director's like, could you please turn your head? You're talking like this. So there's a lot I have to learn, but I really think that a lot of people think they cut our genres up and they don't put them together, but acting, this sense of being and telling stories and getting inside a character and stuff, it's really, to me, it can be across the board. You're just using sort of different skills. I think of even opera. I want to be more inside a character, I think, than some people think of opera, because it's really definitely about getting inside the vocal difficulties. But I want to be inside that person who might be more presentational. I want to get inside the sort of, in Katie's case, in The Accidental Wolf, the more contemporary, realistic, whisper of Katie. Whereas on the stage with something like Kiss Me Kate, the sort of larger than life, musicalized version of a person who with comedy and the larger than life kind of stuff. So, it's all different, but it's the same, really. It's the same intention. It's the same truths. And so I wouldn't ever shy away from it because you think that you have too much to learn. I would learn on the spot. I think that's what life is. We can't, even if you went to a master's program and then a doctoral program in any of this, the true education of it is in the doing of it. So you have to get started at some point. So, don't put it off.
Absolutely. And I think when I first started out, just in theater and being on stage, because I have a classical background, but really just more so choral, as a choral student. And I didn't know what upstage and downstage was. And, And I just asked. I remember I went to a pay to sing opera program at Georgia State. And he said, something like, Adrienne, go upstage. And I was like, I'm sorry, I don't know what that means. And I heard Snickers. And I remember at the time not caring because I was like, well, I don't know what it means,
Right, exactly.
But as I get older and I feel like I need to know things, I get so fearful of being in a situation where I don't know something. And I don't have the bravery that I used to have where I would just say, hey, I don't know what that means and just own it. And I think there's a peace that comes with being able to say, I don't know this, and knowing that's okay. You can't know everything.
Absolutely, it's okay. And think about our business. People want to know things. They want to be helpful. It is a collaboration. And especially with television, if you can bring the humanity and the truth and it's their job. It is their job to light you correctly, film you correctly, capture it correctly. If they need to go in closer, that's not I think a lot of television and film actors get involved in that. And, some become directors and they get involved with like, what shot are you doing? Where are you coming from? And I get that. It totally affects, if you know that you're going to be here, you're probably not going to start screaming, So I think you want to know, but at the same time, you have a director who says, hey, we're going to go really close, or you have a lighting, you have a DP, a director of photography, you have people who are using their expertise to capture. The only thing you have to do is tell the truth. Mm-hmm. And they'll give you notes about it, like the size and the scope. But, and then when you don't know something, I think what director doesn't want to say, well, let me tell you, because I know, give other people a chance to be involved. If you're the person who walks in and says, I know everything, then you intimidate everybody else and they don't feel collaborative. And then so in other words, I believe that just being honest about things and humble is my word for this entire year. It only makes you more of a teammate, because you're allowing people to come in and then giving of yourself in a full way that is honest, and as opposed to being riddled with concerns of not being perfect.
Yeah.
Nothing about acting, in my opinion, is perfect. It's the messes are the beauty. So.
Yeah, absolutely. We recently watched this movie called The Florida Project. Is that what it was called?
Yeah, The Florida Project.
And Carmen Cuba cast the movie, but it was filled with these just seemingly regular people. I mean, the way that they performed, it just seemed like you were watching their lives happen. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you have a chance to watch it, but it was really great. And the star of the whole film was just this young, maybe 6 or 7 year old girl, and just going through her life. And it's not an easy watch. It's a little difficult to watch at times, but it was really great and natural. And I think, like you said, the beauty is in the mistakes and the imperfections, and just because we are imperfect naturally. And the more close we can get to being natural, the better the performance seems to be for me.
Absolutely. Try not to lose any of that questioning person that you are.
Yeah.
I think once you become sort of too slick, and too knowledgeable about everything, you're not as interesting. Mm-hmm. And that's the challenge of getting better and knowing more, is that you lose some of your ability to be fresh and different.
That makes sense. Ooh, that's good. That's good. We are going into, sorry to pivot so quickly, but we're going into what we call the stage door round, where I'll ask you a few questions and you just give me whatever answer comes first to mind.
Okay.
All right. So the first question is your best or your most favorite post-show treat?
Chocolate with caramel inside.
Does it matter what brand, or it can be like any kind of like Turtles or something?
Well, Turtles, my good. Now you're hitting it right on the nail on the head. Now, Turtles, that's the ultimate. If it's got some pecan in there too. But I think just like a Ghirardelli square with the, but I always like the Godiva, just chocolate covered caramels. I used to walk in there and get me some treats, but really any of those chocolate covered caramels. But a turtle is bringing it right home. That's really good.
I can't find them here, like in New York, like the way I want them. Like you can, Austin and I went to Savannah, and you go to one of the treat shops down there and you can find everything you want. But
yes.
I did not know that about you. I just
now
thought
I want one of those. Now I want one of those.
Turn on.
Yes.
Okay, so what are your dressing room must-haves?
Some music, the ability to play music, some candles, a space to stretch out, and then just personal affects. Well, two things: personal affects and show affects. Something that brings.
Adrienne and I hope that you have enjoyed listening to the show thus far. If you'd like to hear the full interview and get access to the curtain call, head on over to 32barcut.com, where you can find a link to our Patreon page. There you will have exclusive access to the entire video collection and private RSS podcast feed, as well as other subscriber-only content. All right, that's all I got. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.